There's several things up in that upper section, the neighborhood section mostly, that we don't fill out yet. But as far as the improvements go, every part of that form is filled out when it gets back to the client.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
I recently got a note from Jeri. I think Jeri's probably female. It's spelled Jeri. I'm sorry if you're not Jeri. Jeri wrote me a note recently and asked, what do you fill out on site? And went on to describe how much more time it is taking him or her to fill out the information on site using a tablet. I want to answer that question and maybe give you a principle that will bless your life, I think, when it comes to real estate appraisal and real estate efficiencies in just a little bit. I want to pause here and remind you that we are sponsored by ANow Software. ANow, of course, speaking of efficiencies and being able to do more with less, that is ANow Software, folks. ANow will allow you to manage every single aspect of your appraisal office so that, in fact, just this morning, folks, I'm going to tell you later on as we proceed through the podcast today of an experience I had with ANow. It was great. It's so easy to find information with ANow. Check them out. Go to anow.com. Again, it's anow.com. All right, folks, so back to Jeri's question. What do you fill out on site? Now, Jeri is specifically talking about mobile. He or she started the email by talking about, actually it was a Facebook Messenger, started the message with the, hey, I'm new to mobile appraising. I want to give this a shot. I've read your blog post called the 10 House Challenge. I'm going through that process now, but what do you actually, there's so much you could do here on site. And it's a great question. What do you fill out on site? Because there's a lot of stuff that people say, well, listen, I fill this out, I fill that out, but it's just easier for me to take the pictures on the phone and put those in later. Or it's just easier for me to do the sketch and do the photos, but not fill out page one. Or it's easier for me to fill out page one and do some quick checks on the county sketch, but actually put the county sketch in later when I get back to my office. Or maybe I fill out half of the form, but I don't fill out the other half. There's so many things that come up. And folks, by the way, let me just pause, step back, and remind you that as a business coach, I realized many years ago that everybody's different. I realized many years ago that everybody has their way of doing things, and certainly I'm going to teach you principles and practices that might, in my opinion, make you more efficient, more effective at what you do. But in the end, it comes down to what you want to do. It comes down to what you're comfortable with, and I'm very respectful of that, and we can work with that. Some people, I think, are hesitant to do coaching with me because they think that there's one way of doing it, and it's Dustin's way, and guess what? I don't really want to do it Dustin's way. I can tell you, folks, if that were the case, I would write a book, and I would be done. And that's not the case. Everybody has a unique business model. Everybody has unique personalities. Everybody has a unique setup of human resources and technology and areas that they cover and types of reports that they do and marketing, and the list goes on and on. So the bottom line is, folks, I'm going to teach you a way of doing things. It is not the way of doing things. But the short answer to the question is very simply everything. So when Jeri asks, what do you fill out on site? The answer is everything. Now, there's limits to that, okay? And I'll give you a couple of those. But I find, and here's the principle, and then we're going to get into details after the break, but I find the more I can fill out on site, number one, the less I'm going to miss. And you've all been there. You get back to your office, and you're like, son of a gun, did that have 2 bedrooms or was one a den? Or, son of a gun, I didn't even bother to look at fill in the blank, right? Do I need to go back out? Can I get the information another way? Can it be credible if we get it another way? There's so many questions when you miss stuff. Folks, I have found that it's just best to fill out everything on site. The other thing that it does for me is it allows the system to work better. And when I say work better, I mean I have a very well-oiled machine in my office and the way things run. And every project, if you will, every appraisal goes through the appraisal assembly line, and it starts with A and it ends with Z. And certainly if it's a drive-by, there's not going to be, an interior inspection. Certainly if it's a condo, it's going to be different on a different form than it will be a 1004. There's so much that goes into the uniqueness of each property, but the system itself is not so unique. The system, it's unique in the world of appraisal, certainly, but it's not unique as far as the day-to-day or the appraisal to appraisal. In other words, as I do the volume that I do, the reason it works and it's efficient and the quality is high is because I'm very careful to send it through the process. And one of the things that we have learned over the years is to fill out as much as you can on site, because at that point you upload to the cloud, and even before I get back to the office, my office has already downloaded and unsynced and is starting to work on that appraisal. Now check that out. Even before, while I'm in the car driving to my office, that appraisal is being worked on. How cool is that? I'll tell you another thing that's super cool. That's ANOW software. Just this morning, I had somebody reach out to me, one of my contractors reach out to me and said, hey, I'm seeing that our average fee has gone down over the last little while. And I said, really? I said, that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't seem right at all. If anything, we have increased our fees the last little while because there's been such a high demand for our services. And so I've directed my office manager to actually increase fees, not dramatically, but enough that it's worth it, and that we can get stuff done and not feel bad about the work that might be going out the door without us touching it because we don't have time. And so within literally 5 minutes, I mean, it was less than that, probably 3.5, 4 minutes, I had the answer back to her. I was able to jump on ANOW. I was able to see what our average fee was for this year, for the last 90 days, for the last month, and even for the last 2 weeks. And I said, here's the thing. I just looked at ANOW, and our fees, yes, they were down 2 weeks ago. Okay, our normal fee, I don't remember what the numbers were, but our normal fees in this area are $543. We were down to $527 2 weeks ago. We're back up to $560 the last week. And those answers come that quick. Within 3.5, 4 minutes, I was able to get an answer back to this individual, and I could do it because I can look all that up and more in ANOW software. Folks, if you want to be able to make business decisions because you know your numbers, ANOW is where you need to be. ANOW.com is where you find out more. It's ANOW.com. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Again, just answering a question for Jeri. Jeri asked, what do I fill out on a site? Thank you for the great question, Jeri. By the way, in the break, I did look it up. It is a female. I'm not going to say the last name. I'm going to keep it confidential, but it is a female, Jeri. Thank you for the comment or the question, Jeri. The answer is, Jeri, everything. I fill out everything I possibly can. Now, within reason, there's certain things in all, I mean, we can get in detail. With each room, some of you know this, some of you don't. Let's say you're on the sketch, and you put a bedroom in the upper right-hand corner on your sketch. You can double-click on that word bedroom, and it will open up so you can take a picture of the bedroom, which we do because it automatically labels it. But you can also scroll down. You can fill out the floor coverings. You can fill out the wall coverings. You can fill out the condition, the quality of each room. Folks, we don't go into that much detail when we're there. We give an overall quality and overall condition to the house. We fill out page 1 where it talks about the materials on the floor. You know, this one had tile, carpet, and hardwood. But we don't go into each room and fill those out individually. I know some of you that's important too. It's not to us. I don't know if it matters on the overall scheme of things as long as it's being reported on the whole. So there's a lot of details you could utilize and get into on a mobile inspection that we don't. But I will tell you this much, folks, as much as we can, when it comes back, here's what is filled out on my office site. So when my office downloads that from the cloud, it has all of page 1 filled out. Now, some of that was filled out before we went out. Okay. Actually, that's not true. We haven't done the neighborhood boundaries at that point. We haven't done the pre-dom value, the highs and lows, the pre-dom year bill, the highs and lows. There's several things up in that upper section, the neighborhood section mostly, that we don't fill out yet. But as far as the improvements go, every part of that form is filled out when it gets back to the client. I don't just leave it to chance. I fill it out when I'm on site. That does a couple of different things that I'm going to rotate back to in just a second. But all of the photos are not only put in, but they are labeled. They are in the report, the front, the rear, the street, the alternative street, the side of each side of the house, the sheds, the swimming pool, the deck, the deferred maintenance items, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the living rooms, the kitchens, the utility rooms, you name it. That is all not only in there, but it's labeled. All of the comp photos. I drive the comp photos while I'm out. Mine as well, right? I'm there anyway. So comp 1, comp 2, comp 3, comp 4, comp 5, comp 6, they're all in there. The photos are in there. And the sketch. Not only is the sketch there and right, we start out with a county sketch, but I always, not always, most of the time I tweak it. They're not always right. But we end up with a sketch, which is a perimeter of the of each level and the approximate room placeage. Okay, all of those are in there as well. That's what we fill out on site because it allows us to be able to be more efficient. Does it take more time on site? Absolutely. Could I do it quicker with a piece of graph paper? Probably. I don't know, probably. But that's not the time savings. The time savings, the efficiency savings is that I don't have to, quote unquote, re-inspect the property when I get back to the office. That's where I would transfer my chicken scratches into a form. That's when I would take the photos that I put in Dropbox and put it in the form. That's when I would take the sketch and clean it up, or actually take the sketch that was hand-drawn and put it in the computer. I don't do that. I know a lot of appraisers that do. And you know what? I'm not going to rock your boat. If that wets your whistle, go for it. That's great. Wonderful. Lovely. It doesn't work for us. What works for us, Jeri, thank you for the question. Again, everything I possibly can. It gives me a little bit more time in the house, which I don't think is a bad thing, both from my perspective and from the client's perspective, right? the point of contact. You've all had this, right? He came in low, and he was only in my house 17 minutes, so of course he came in low. I've heard it all before. If I can spend a little extra time in there, that's not such a bad thing. So, Jeri, consider everything you can, the photos, the sketch, all of page 1. If you can do all of that, I think it will make your efficiencies better. Speaking of making your efficiencies better, I have a great workshop out there. When it comes to mobile appraising, I have a workshop all about, I think it's about a 4-hour workshop. It was done in front of a live audience, and we get into some details, folks. I teach you on screen how to sketch, how to do photos, this little trick that I showed you earlier, I talked to you about earlier, where you can double click on the name of the room and actually put the photos and some details in there. I share all of that with you in my mobile appraising workshop. You can find it on my website, theappraisercoach.com/products.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
I want to pause here and remind you that we are sponsored by